Hello, my sleepy heads. It's good to have you back on History for Sleep. In the following minutes, you will experience a deep state of relaxation. This story helps you to easily sleep through the night, so you can get up energized in the morning. Not only will you fall asleep faster, you will also get rid of disturbing thoughts. Listen to these history stories for at least 10 days for the best results. The longer you listen to the video, the more likely you'll experience persistent and positive changes in the way you sleep. I wish you a great rest, and if you haven't already, we'd be very happy if you consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss any new calming and relaxing history story. Tonight, we're going to drift back into the twilight world of the Middle Ages, a time of castles and cathedrals, but also whispers, shadows, and stories told by firelight. The medieval world was filled with tales meant to warn, to frighten, and sometimes to comfort. These were stories carried from village to village, echoing through stone halls and humble cottages alike. Dark fairy tales, shaped by superstition and survival, spoke of dangers lurking in the forest, of bargains with fate, and of the mysteries of life and death. Over the next couple of hours, we'll explore 5 of these haunting legends, not to startle you, but to ease you gently into sleep. Told softly, they become less grim and more dreamlike, carrying you into a calm, distant past where time slows and imagination drifts. But before you get comfortable and let your mind drift into this ancient world, I'd love it if you could take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe. Only if these calm stories of the past bring you peace. Your support truly helps me grow and keep making these calm journey through time just for you. And in the comments, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always so wonderful to see our little community listening together from all corners of the world, quietly sharing these stories across space and time. So, settle in, dim the light, maybe turn on the fan, take a slow breath, and let us step softly into the medieval tales to guide you into rest, strange, shadowed, and unforgettable. Now let's begin. Tonight, we begin our slow journey into the shadowed corridors of the Middle Ages, a world both familiar and foreign, where every flicker of torchlight stretched long against the stone, and every whisper seemed to carry the weight of centuries. To set the mood, imagine yourself in a small village just beyond the castle walls. The night has drawn its heavy cloak across the land, and the only sounds are the soft rustling of leaves and the faint call of an owl in the distance. The streets are silent now, for few dared to wander after dark. By day, the village is filled with the rhythm of work. Farmers tending the fields, craftsmen shaping wood and metal, children carrying water from the well. But at night, it becomes a different place altogether. Shadows stretch across the timbered homes, and the faint glow of candlelight through tiny windows looks like stars scattered low upon the earth. This was the world in which tales were told, not on parchment or in books, but from lips to ears, by firelight, in voices that rose and fell with the crackling of the flames. To set the medieval mood is to soften your own mind into that space. A time before clocks measured every second, when the pace of life followed the sun, the seasons, and the turning of the years. Step inside a hall where travelers and villagers gather for warmth. The air smells faintly of smoke and roasted grain, the kind of scent that clings to woolen tunics and rough cloaks. A great wooden beam stretches above your head, and along the walls, rushes line the floor to absorb the dirt of many feet. Here, tales were more than just entertainment, they were survival. To know the story of the maiden who vanished into the woods was to remember the danger of straying too far after dusk. To listen to the fable of the trickster spirit was to be reminded not to bargain too eagerly with strangers who appeared at crossroads. The medieval mood is steeped in such caution, for the world was filled with mystery and uncertainty. Illness might sweep through a village without warning. Crops might wither with no clear cause, and war could arrive on horseback overnight. Against such uncertainties, stories were like invisible threads binding the people together. They offered explanations where knowledge failed, and comfort where hope faltered. As you listen, you can imagine the crackle of firelight dancing across the storyteller's face, casting shadows that make his eyes gleam and his hands seem larger as they gesture to mark the rise and fall of each tale. Beyond the village hearth, picture the great cathedral rising over the land, its bell tolling in the distance, marking the slow passage of hours that most people could never measure. Faith, fear, and superstition were deeply woven into the medieval fabric. The mood of the time was heavy with reverence, but also with unease, for every miracle was mirrored by a warning, and every blessing by a curse. To set the medieval mood is to imagine a world without the hum of machines or the glow of electric light, where every sound was sharper, every shadow deeper, every silence more profound. In such silence, the imagination did not rest. It wandered, filling the dark with creatures, with spirits, with the shapes of forgotten saints and restless souls. The tales that grew from this silence were not merely grim for the sake of fear. They were woven to explain, to guide, to instruct. As you hear them tonight, you may notice how slowly they unfold, how each word is weighted like a stone placed carefully in a wall. In the Middle Ages, stories were built for endurance, for retelling, for living on in memory long after the fire had gone cold. Let that slowness guide your own breathing now, steady and unhurried, as though you too are listening in a hall centuries ago. Step outside again, into the medieval night, and you will find the darkness almost complete. No lanterns line the paths, no lamps burn in the distance. Only the pale face of the moon and the scattered sparks of stars. The medieval night was not silent in the way we might think. It was alive with small sounds, the creak of wooden shutters in the wind, the shuffle of animals in their pens, the occasional bark of a dog that hears what no human ear can catch. To walk through such a night was to walk into uncertainty, into the realm of the unseen, and it was in these hours that stories held their deepest power. For when one cannot see, one imagines. Shapes in the dark become wolves. Whispers of wind become voices. The flicker of a torch in the distance becomes a wandering soul. Setting the medieval mood, then, is also allowing yourself to drift into that half-dreaming state, where what is real and what is imagined blend seamlessly together. The people of the Middle Ages did not resist this. They lived within it, and their stories reflect that mingling of life and dream. Tonight, as you listen, you too may find yourself drifting between waking and sleeping, between the world you know and the one you can only imagine. And so we settle deeper into the medieval mood, a place where fear and wonder walk side by side, and where every tale is both a warning and a lullaby. The flicker of firelight, the hush of voices in a darkened hall, the stillness of the countryside wrapped in night. All of these created a world where stories were not merely entertainment, but lifelines. They explained the unexplainable, carried memory across generations, and lulled restless hearts into uneasy but needed sleep. As we prepare to wander through the 5 dark fairy tales of the Middle Ages, let us carry this mood with us. Calm, slow, shadowed, and unhurried. For though these tales may seem grim by daylight, in the quiet of night they lose their edges, becoming soft shapes drifting like smoke into the rafters, or like dreams carried on the breath of sleep. Tonight, you need not worry about the weight of their warnings or the sharpness of their lessons. Instead, allow them to unfold as gentle rhythms, steady as footsteps on an old stone path, leading you further from the waking world and deeper into the quiet refuge of rest. With each story, you will step a little farther into the past, a little closer to dreams, and a little more at ease with the dark, mysterious beauty of the medieval world. Tonight, our first dark medieval tale is known as The Singing Bones, a story that drifts between sorrow and wonder, as so many medieval fables often did. Imagine, if you will, a quiet countryside where 2 brothers live, one gentle and kind, the other greedy and restless. Their paths are bound together by fate, yet their hearts could not be more different. In this world, where villages huddled beneath the shadow of forests, and where superstition whispered with every gust of wind, stories like this one were more than mere entertainment. They were lessons wrapped in shadow, reminders of what happens when envy and cruelty are allowed to grow unchecked. The Singing Bones is not only a tale of betrayal, but also of justice that arrives in strange and haunting ways. Tonight, we tell it not to trouble your sleep, but to soothe it, its grim edges softened into rhythm, its sharpness dulled by time, leaving behind only the gentle flow of story, carrying you further into calm. The story begins with the king of a faraway land who longs for news of a monstrous wild boar that has been terrorizing his kingdom. This beast roams the forests, tearing through fields, destroying crops, and leaving the villagers in fear. Determined to be rid of the creature, the king promises a reward. Whoever can slay the wild boar shall win the hand of his daughter and half of the kingdom. It is a prize that stirs ambition in many hearts, including those of two brothers. The elder, proud and cunning, sees an opportunity for glory, while the younger, gentle and unassuming, feels only the call of duty and hope for peace. With the king's challenge echoing across the land, the two set out on their journey together. The medieval mood, heavy with fate and uncertainty, clings to them as they step into the shadow of the forest, where every crack of twig underfoot might belong to the beast they seek. For the listener, this is the soft unfolding of a tale both familiar and strange, a reminder of the timeless struggle between kindness and cruelty, and how the choices of one moment can echo like music long after. As the brothers travel deeper into the woods, the younger one pauses by a humble cottage. Inside lives a simple man, old and worn, who offers him bread and comfort. The younger brother, grateful for the kindness, shares a portion of his food in return, showing respect for even the poorest of souls. The elder brother, impatient and proud, scoffs at this delay. He presses on ahead, eyes fixed only on the prize that awaits. Soon enough, the younger follows, strengthened by kindness, his spirit calm. This contrast, the greed of one, the humility of the other, becomes the quiet heartbeat of the tale. For in medieval stories, it was often the overlooked virtue of generosity that shone brightest, even when cloaked in hardship. The forest grows darker around them, the air thick with the damp scent of moss and soil, the silence broken only by the distant cries of unseen creatures. To hear this tale now, in the stillness of night, is to walk alongside them, step by step, deeper into the unknown, lulled by the rhythm of their journey and the inevitability of what awaits. At last, the brothers come upon the wild boar. It is no ordinary beast, but a massive creature with bristling hair, sharp tusks, and eyes that glint like embers in the dark. The elder brother, bold but reckless, rushes forward with his weapon raised. Yet it is the younger, steady and thoughtful, who remains calm. He offers no rash movement, only quiet courage. With patience and skill, he defeats the beast, striking at the right moment, ending its terror. But what follows is not triumph. The elder brother, consumed with envy, cannot bear the thought of his younger sibling gaining the king's reward. As they walk back through the forest, the elder's heart grows heavier, his thoughts darker, until at last he leads his brother aside to a lonely place. There, with cruel hands, he ends the younger's life, burying him beneath the earth, leaving only silence where once there had been laughter. In the calm retelling, it is not horror we feel, but inevitability, the heavy stillness of betrayal that lingers long after the act itself. Time passes, as it always does in such stories. The elder brother returns to the king's hall, claiming the prize for himself. He tells of the boar he has slain, presenting the beast's tusks as proof. The court celebrates, though the air feels heavy, as though some truth has been buried deeper than any blade can reach. The king grants him his daughter's hand and a share of the kingdom, and for a time, all seems well. Yet stories such as this never allow injustice to rest forever. The earth itself remembers, and even bones can speak when wronged. The younger brother's body lies hidden, but not forgotten, waiting for the moment when truth will rise like a song from beneath the soil. To listen to this now, in the stillness of night, is to understand how medieval people viewed justice: slow, inevitable, and woven through the fabric of the world. Even silence carries a voice, and even betrayal cannot erase what is meant to be revealed. One day, a shepherd passes by the lonely place where the younger brother lies. With his staff, he uncovers a strange sight: bones glimmering white beneath the earth. Curious, he gathers two of them and fashions them into a flute. When he lifts the instrument to his lips, a sound unlike any other fills the air. It is no ordinary melody, but the voice of the slain brother himself, singing softly through the hollowed bone. The song tells of his fate, of the wild boar he slew, of the betrayal by his own kin, and of the place where his body rests. The shepherd trembles at the sound, yet continues to play, the tune both sorrowful and strangely beautiful. In the calm of this retelling, the music is not frightening, but gentle, drifting like mist over a still lake. It carries the weight of truth, but also the release of speaking at last. Imagine lying in the quiet of night, hearing such a tune rise faintly through the darkness. Haunting, yes, but soothing too, its rhythm lulling you toward dreams. The shepherd brings the flute to the king's court, eager to share the strange discovery. Before the gathering of nobles and courtiers, he plays the song once more. The hall falls silent as the melody drifts through the air, every ear straining to catch the words that emerge from the music. The voice of the younger brother tells his tale again, sorrowful but unbroken, pointing unerringly to the guilt of the elder. The king, shocked and grieved, summons the elder brother, who cannot hide from the truth carried by such a song. His crime is revealed, not by witness or confession, but by the voice of the dead himself, speaking through the very bones he thought buried forever. Justice arrives not with swords or judgments, but with a melody, strange, haunting, undeniable. For the medieval mind, this was the way of things. Truth might sleep, but it could never be silenced completely. The elder brother meets his fate, stripped of honor and reward, his kingdom and bride taken from him. The younger, though gone, is remembered, his story etched into song, retold by villagers for generations. In this ending, we find the heart of the tale: betrayal punished, kindness vindicated, truth sung even from the silence of death. For those who listened in the Middle Ages, such a tale was more than a grim curiosity. It was a reminder that the world itself held balance, that no crime could remain hidden forever. Tonight, as you hear it told in soft tones, let it become not a source of fear, but a rhythm for sleep. For what is the singing bone, if not the voice of memory itself, speaking gently, steadily, until the listener drifts into rest? Like the melody of the flute, this story lingers, not sharp or sudden, but quiet, repeating, fading into the soft spaces of the mind. And as it fades, so too does the waking world, leaving only the hush of night and the slow, certain drift into dreams. Now that we have wandered through the haunting melody of the singing bones, let us drift softly into another medieval tale, one that feels darker still, yet carries that same quiet rhythm that helps the mind settle. This is the story of the robber bridegroom, a tale whispered in hushed tones beside hearth fires, passed from parent to child as both a warning and a strange entertainment. Unlike the fantastical elements of many fairy tales, this one lingers uncomfortably close to reality. It tells of trust misplaced, of appearances deceiving, and of danger that waits just beyond the familiar. As you listen, don't worry about holding on too tightly to each detail. Let the story wash over you like the flickering shadows of candlelight, soothing and steady until the edges blur into dreams. Our story begins in a small medieval village where life moved to the rhythm of seasons and harvests. Families worked the land, guarded what little they had, and dreamed of prosperous matches for their children. In this village lived a miller, proud of his trade and eager to see his daughter wed to a man of wealth and promise. One day, a seemingly respectable suitor arrived, a man of noble bearing, polished words, and the appearance of fortune. To the miller, this seemed the answer to his hopes. Yet to the daughter, there was a chill in his presence, a darkness she could not name. Still, as was often the way in those times, the wishes of fathers outweighed the doubts of daughters. The betrothal was set, the arrangements made, and a wedding loomed in the distance like a shadow stretching across her days. The bridegroom, with his courteous smile, invited the young woman to visit his home deep in the forest. "Come and see where you shall live," he said, his voice smooth but strangely hollow, like the echo of a bell rung too long. The girl, though uneasy, agreed, for in her heart she feared both disobedience to her father and the unknown intentions of this man. And so, with hesitant steps, she followed him into the forest. The path grew darker as trees pressed close together, their branches intertwining like skeletal fingers. Birdsong faded, replaced by silence broken only by the crunch of leaves beneath their boots. Every step seemed to carry her farther from safety and deeper into something unseen, yet inevitable. At last, they reached his dwelling, a grand house, but strangely lifeless. Its windows were shuttered, its doors heavy, and the silence within felt more like a warning than a welcome. The girl entered, her heart tight with unease. Inside, the air was cold and still, carrying the faintest trace of decay, like flowers left too long in a vase. She looked around at the grand hall, the heavy furnishings, the shadows clinging to the corners. Though richly appointed, the place lacked warmth. It was not a home, but a cage. The bridegroom, watching her carefully, said little, as though waiting for something yet to come. She sensed it then, that she was not merely a guest, but prey walking willingly into a trap. The story, as it was told by villagers through the centuries, becomes darker here. For the bridegroom was no noble suitor, but the leader of a band of robbers who lured women into his lair, never to return. It was a tale meant to frighten young women into caution, warning them not to trust too quickly, not to be swayed by appearances. The young bride-to-be wandered the hall, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness, until she stumbled upon a hidden chamber. The door creaked open, and the air that escaped was thick with dread. Inside, she saw the truth, remnants of those who had come before her, bones and broken fragments of lives stolen too soon. Her heart nearly stopped, but she did not scream. In silence, she shut the door and returned, her face pale but her mind racing. She knew then that she must escape, but escape was never so simple in tales such as these. The robbers returned not long after, their voices loud and coarse, their laughter filling the hall like wolves circling their prey. The bridegroom welcomed them, speaking words that barely masked the cruelty beneath. The girl, hidden in the shadows, heard them speak of her fate, and a cold realization settled upon her. This was the end that awaited her, had she not been cautious. Yet in the strange way of fairy tales, help often comes in moments of greatest despair. For before her journey, an old woman in the village had warned her to scatter peas or lentils along the path, a simple act of foresight. Now, as fear threatened to overcome her, she remembered this trail of seeds, faint but guiding, like stars in a night sky. The robbers prepared their feast, oblivious to her plan, and the bridegroom watched her with eyes that seemed to pierce the shadows. But when the moment came, when all were distracted by their revelry, she slipped quietly away. Her breath came fast, her footsteps soft, as she followed the faint glimmer of her path. Through the forest she fled, the trees looming tall, the night pressing in close, her every sense sharpened by fear and determination. Each rustle of leaves seemed like pursuit, each crack of a branch like the breath of death at her neck. But still she pressed on, the memory of bones in the hidden chamber urging her forward. At last, she reached the safety of her village, her body trembling, her spirit shaken but unbroken. She told her family of the horrors she had seen, of the robbers and their grim dwelling in the forest. The miller, filled with both sorrow and fury, gathered the villagers. The tale says that justice was swift, that the robbers were hunted and punished, their crimes laid bare for all to see. The bridegroom's deception was revealed, his mask of nobility torn away. For the villagers, this was not merely the ending of one young woman's peril, but a victory over the hidden dangers that haunted their lives. The Robber Bridegroom became a story retold in countless versions, passed down through generations. Each telling emphasized the dangers of strangers, the need for caution, and the hidden darkness beneath polished appearances. In an age when survival depended on vigilance, these tales were more than entertainment. They were lessons woven into story, meant to linger in the mind long after the fire had burned low. Yet told in the soft cadence of bedtime, the sharp edges dull, and the tale becomes a strange kind of comfort. The danger has passed, the heroine has survived, and sleep can wrap gently around us like the closing of a safe door. As we reflect on this tale, it's easy to imagine the medieval villagers gathered close, their children listening wide-eyed as the shadows danced across the walls. The parents, speaking softly, hoped their children would remember, not every smiling face is kind, not every promise is true. But they also offered reassurance. There is wisdom to be found in caution and safety in community. These simple, enduring lessons wrap themselves around the story like a protective cloak, transforming fear into knowledge and knowledge into a quiet sort of peace. In the modern night, as we lie safe in our beds, the story drifts far from its origins. It no longer warns of real dangers lurking in forest shadows, but instead acts as a gentle lullaby of caution and survival. The mind relaxes as the tale unfolds, because it is complete, resolved, and distant. The robber bridegroom has played his part, the danger has been overcome, and we can surrender to rest knowing the story belongs to another world entirely. In this way, the very darkness of the tale transforms into a kind of light, an assurance that fears, once faced, can be put to rest. And so, the tale of the robber bridegroom closes, leaving us at the edge of sleep, where the mind drifts between the real and the imagined. Like so many medieval stories, it is grim on the surface, yet softened by the passage of time and the rhythm of retelling. As the last echoes fade, we carry only the calm cadence, the reminder that every story has an ending, and that endings, however dark in their telling, bring a sense of closure. With that thought, we let the tale slip gently away, preparing to wander into yet another shadowed story from the medieval past, one that waits quietly for us, just beyond the veil of dreams. And so, with the robber bridegroom fading like a dream behind us, we wander further into the quiet woods of medieval storytelling. The next tale comes cloaked in an eerie stillness, carrying with it both unease and wonder. It is known in fragments across Europe, passed down in hushed voices, and sometimes scribbled into the margins of old manuscripts. This is the tale of the knight and the talking skull, a story that lingers on the strange boundary between the living and the dead. Unlike tales of princesses and dragons, this one feels carved from the stone of graveyards, heavy with silence and mystery. Yet, told slowly and gently, it becomes less a tale of terror and more a meditation on mortality, on the fleeting nature of life, and the strange comfort of remembering that all stories, even our own, are part of something greater. The story begins with a knight, a wanderer, armored but weary, riding through a forest at dusk. His journey had no clear purpose. For some say he was a soldier returned from wars, others that he sought glory, and still others that he fled from something he could not name. What all versions agree upon is that night fell quickly, and as he searched for shelter, he stumbled upon a crumbling chapel, half swallowed by ivy and shadow. The walls were broken, the roof sagging, but within its ruins flickered the faint glow of a candle. Drawn by the light, the knight entered, his boots crunching softly on stone, his heart beating steady but uncertain. There, upon a weathered altar, lay a human skull, and beside it, the candle's flame burned low. At first, the knight felt nothing but unease, for in that dim light the skull seemed to watch him. He drew closer, curiosity pulling him against his caution. And then, in the heavy silence of the chapel, a voice echoed, not loud, not frightening, but clear and deliberate. The skull spoke. "Night," it whispered, "why do you disturb the rest of the forgotten?" The knight froze, his hand tightening on his sword hilt, though he did not raise it. The voice was not threatening, but mournful, like the last note of a song fading into the night. "I am bound to this place," the skull continued, "until my story is told. Will you hear me?" The knight, though shaken, felt the weight of honor press upon him, and so he agreed to listen. The skull began its tale. Once, it said, it belonged to a man of wealth and power, a lord whose halls were filled with feasts and whose words carried weight. But pride and greed led him astray. He betrayed his people, forsook his vows, and when the hour of reckoning came, he fled. In the wilderness he perished, nameless and forgotten, and his remains were left to decay in silence. Yet his soul found no rest, for betrayal leaves a stain that lingers beyond death, and so he remained, bound to this ruined chapel, waiting for a voice that would hear his confession. The knight listened, his heart heavy with the story, for he too bore the scars of battles and choices that weighed upon him in the quiet of night. The knight asked softly, "Why me? Why should I be the one to hear you?" And the skull replied, "Because the living and the dead are not so far apart as you believe. Each man carries his own grave within him, and each choice is a stone upon its walls. You wander because you seek purpose. I speak because I seek release. In listening, perhaps we both may find what we have lost." The knight bowed his head, struck by the truth in those words. For though he was alive, he too felt haunted by those who had fallen beside him in battle, by promises unkept, by paths that led to blood and silence. In that moment, the skull's tale became his mirror, reflecting what he had long tried to ignore. Outside, the wind stirred, sighing through the broken chapel like a ghostly choir. The candle burned lower, its flame trembling as though caught between two worlds. The knight remained still, his armor gleaming faintly in the flickering light. He realized then that the story was not merely about the skull, but about the nature of memory itself. The dead live on when their stories are told, and the living find peace in understanding that death is not an end, but a passage. The skull asked the night to carry its tale into the world, so that its sins might be known, its pride cautioned against, and its fate remembered as a warning. The night promised, and as those words left his lips, the candle guttered once more. The skull grew silent, and though its hollow eyes no longer glowed with speech, the air felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. The knight remained in the chapel until dawn, his thoughts drifting between the living and the dead, between duty and release. When the first light of morning filtered through the broken walls, he rose, carrying with him the memory of the voice and the promise he had made. In some versions of the tale, the knight fulfills his vow, speaking of the skull's story wherever he travels, warning others of the dangers of betrayal and pride. In other versions, he fails, forgetting or ignoring the task, and in so doing inherits the skull's curse. But whichever way the story ends, the essence remains the same. The living are bound to the dead, not by fear, but by remembrance. To remember is to honor, and to honor is to give peace, both to those gone and to those who remain. It was a lesson the medieval world cherished, where cemeteries lay at the heart of villages and prayers for the dead mingled with the songs of the living. Told beside the hearth, the tale of the night and the talking skull must have sent shivers through those who first heard it. Yet tonight, in the stillness of your own room, it carries no threat. Instead, it offers a gentle rhythm for the drifting mind, the sound of voices long past, echoing softly in memory, until even their echoes fade into calm. Like the night resting in the chapel, you too can let the weight of the day slip from your shoulders, knowing that every voice, no matter how heavy, grows quiet in time. It is a tale that invites reflection. In the flicker of the skull's candlelight, we are reminded that life is fragile, that pride and betrayal weigh heavily, but also that listening, truly listening, is a gift. The night's simple act of staying, of hearing a voice that the world had forgotten, brought release. In our own way, we too can honor the forgotten by pausing, by remembering, by allowing silence to be filled with meaning rather than fear. These thoughts, drifting gently like leaves on a slow-moving stream, soothe the restless mind, preparing it for dreams. As the tale draws toward its close, imagine the knight leaving the ruined chapel, dawn breaking through the mist, the forest awakening around him. Birds stir in the branches, light spills across the moss, and the skull rests quietly now, its candle extinguished. The story has been told, and that telling is enough. For the night, it is a new beginning. For the skull, a final piece. And for us, it is simply another step into sleep, where stories fold softly into silence. And so ends the story of the night and the talking skull. A tale of confession, of remembrance, of release. Strange, shadowed, and yet unexpectedly calming. It reminds us that even the darkest stories, when spoken slowly and gently, can guide us not into fear, but into rest. With the night's promise fulfilled, we leave the ruined chapel behind and wander further still into the world of medieval tales, where another shadowed story waits to guide us deeper into dream. Having wandered through shadows of betrayal, haunted melodies, and talking skulls, we now turn to a tale both strange and gentle in its unfolding. This is the story known as the Werewolf Secret, a medieval tale that mixes fear and curiosity, darkness and wonder, yet is told in such a rhythm that it soothes rather than startles. Picture a village nestled between hills and dense forests, where the sun dips low in the sky and mist creeps along the ground. It is here that our story begins, in a world where superstition guides daily life and secrets linger behind every closed door. Unlike modern tales of terror, this one is subtle, soft in its cadence, and carries the quiet pulse of mystery, a tale to drift alongside as sleep quietly approaches. The main character is a young woman of the village, known for her keen mind and gentle heart. She lives with her family in a timbered cottage, the walls lined with herbs and simple charms meant to ward off illness or misfortune. Yet despite the charms, the village is not free of unease. For years, rumors have spread of a mysterious figure who prowls the nearby woods. Some say he is a wolf, others a man cursed by magic, yet no one has ever truly seen him. Still, the villagers whisper, casting wary glances when the shadows lengthen, and locking doors when the wind carries strange sounds. In this world, danger is never far, yet the rhythm of life moves on. Meals are cooked, fires stoked, and children lulled to sleep by stories meant to warn and comfort alike. One evening, as the sun fades into a soft crimson, the young woman ventures near the edge of the forest to gather firewood. The mist swirls around her feet, and the air smells damp and earthy. She pauses when she hears rustling nearby, her heartbeat slowing as her mind balances between fear and fascination. From the shadows steps a figure, tall and silent, whose eyes gleam faintly like amber. For a moment, she believes him to be one of the forest's wolves. Yet there is something unmistakably human about him. And in that quiet, the forest itself seems to hold its breath, as if acknowledging the meeting of two lives, one ordinary, one shadowed with secret power. The figure speaks softly, introducing himself with a voice that is deep but calm. He reveals nothing at first of his secret, only that he wanders the forest and seeks understanding, not harm. The young woman, cautious but intrigued, listens. In medieval tales, such meetings often carry significance, a moment when fate begins to weave its quiet threads. And so it is here. Each word, each glance, carries weight, yet in the telling, nothing rushes. We, as listeners, drift with her, walking beside her through the mist, feeling the forest's dampness, the soft crunch of twigs underfoot, and the slow pulse of suspense mingling with calm. Over time, she learns that the stranger is indeed cursed, bound to shift between man and wolf when the moon rises full in the sky. Yet this is not a story of fear. It is one of duality, of hidden truths, and of learning to accept the parts of ourselves we may not understand. The young woman does not run, but observes, her mind opening to the rhythm of the forest and the strange magic of the world. The medieval storyteller would have emphasized patience, vigilance, and reflection, lessons woven into the narrative that guide not only the characters but also those who listen in the stillness of night. Night falls, soft and thick, and the moon rises above the treetops, casting silver light across the misted ground. The young woman witnesses the transformation, watching the man take the shape of a wolf. His movements are fluid, graceful, and strangely elegant. Fear lingers, but it is tempered by curiosity and empathy. For the medieval mind, this was a story about understanding and the hidden aspects of life, not merely a frightful tale. The rhythm of the narrative slows, measured and deliberate, carrying the listener along the edges of suspense without startling, guiding them gently toward a calm engagement with the story. As days pass in the story, the young woman becomes the keeper of his secret. She helps him find food, tends to his injuries, and listens to his tale of exile and curse. Through this bond, the villagers remain unaware, and the forest continues its quiet vigil. The medieval storyteller would have emphasized the virtue of trust, the necessity of discretion, and the quiet courage required to help those in need. For us, lying in the soft light of our own rooms, it is a lesson in patience and calm, reminding us that compassion and quiet understanding can bring peace even in the midst of mystery and fear. Winter approaches, and with it comes the harsher challenges of life. The forest grows darker, frost forms along the edges of streams, and the nights lengthen. The young woman continues her care, venturing into the forest at dawn and dusk, always cautious, always attentive. Each encounter with the werewolf is a meditation in stillness, a gentle reminder that the world is larger than our immediate perception, and that secrets, whether whispered by trees, hidden in shadows, or carried within another, are part of the tapestry of life. The pace is slow, deliberate, guiding the listener into relaxation with each word. Eventually, the villagers begin to suspect that someone is moving in the forest, and the young woman must weave her knowledge carefully to prevent discovery. The tension in the tale remains, but it is soft, more a quiet hum than a sharp jolt. She moves like a shadow, her steps careful, her mind steady, embodying the virtues that medieval listeners would have admired. Courage tempered by wisdom, bravery paired with discretion, and patience that outlasts fear. The forest itself seems to recognize her, allowing her passage and lending a rhythm to the tale that soothes rather than alarms. One night, under a silvered sky, the werewolf confides his deepest secret. He was once a nobleman betrayed by envy and ambition, cursed by a sorcerer to roam the forest until his innocence could be proven. The young woman listens, not with horror, but with understanding, her empathy bridging the gap between human and beast. In the soft telling, the curse is transformed into a meditation on endurance and the quiet dignity of living with one's burdens. Each word, each revelation, is measured and gentle, carrying the mind along like a slow river toward rest. As the story nears its resolution, the bond between the young woman and the cursed knight becomes a quiet force for change. She devises a plan to reveal the truth without endangering him. In the medieval mind, cleverness and foresight were valued as much as courage, and this tale reflects that balance. The story slows to allow reflection, each sentence like a stepping stone placed carefully across a stream. We follow her quietly, step by step, feeling the gentle rhythm of her determination and the forest's soft acceptance, readying the listener's mind for calm and the approach of sleep. Finally, the curse is lifted, not with magic alone, but with understanding, patience, and courage. The knight returns to his human form, his secret revealed, but his dignity intact. The young woman's care and insight bring resolution to the tale, leaving the listener with a sense of closure and calm. And as we drift from the story, the forest recedes into dream, the night's hush enveloping us, and the gentle rhythm of medieval life, mystery, caution, and quiet heroism guides us softly into the edge of sleep. The werewolf's secret, once dark and strange, becomes a lullaby of patience, empathy, and the gentle power of listening to hidden truths. Now, as the moon drifts high in the medieval sky, and the forests and villages we have visited grow quiet in our minds, we arrive at our final tale. It is called The Dance of the Dead, a story whispered in shadowed halls and written in old manuscripts with ink fading into parchment. This tale is less about fright and more about the gentle rhythm of life and death, the natural cycle that medieval people observed and respected. Imagine a village cloaked in autumn mist, with lanterns flickering against stone walls, and children tucked in bed as their parents recount the strange and haunting tales meant to remind all of the balance between the living and the dead. Tonight, we journey there softly, letting the cadence of the story lull the mind into calm. The tale begins with a village priest who speaks of a festival, a night when the living and the dead dance together, if only in memory and story. In this quiet community, the villagers prepare carefully, offerings of bread and wine, candles placed along window sills, and songs sung softly to honor ancestors. The Dance of the Dead is not a frightening spectacle, but a gentle reminder that death is part of life, that those who have passed leave traces in memory, laughter, and love. As the night deepens, a hush falls over the village, the wind whispering through the trees, carrying the faintest echo of drums and tambourines that might only exist in imagination. Among the villagers is a young boy, curious and thoughtful, who wanders to the churchyard where the oldest graves rest. Moss covers the stones, and ivy curls over weathered epitaphs. He imagines the stories of those who sleep beneath the earth: farmers, soldiers, mothers, and children, each life full and now quiet. The priest approaches him gently, offering a soft smile and a candle, explaining that tonight, as in generations past, they honor the dead through dance, music, and remembrance. The boy feels a thrill, but it is not fear, it is wonder. He senses the rhythm of centuries, the connection of past to present, the pulse of life continuing quietly alongside death. As night falls fully, villagers begin their procession, moving slowly and deliberately among the graves, candles flickering like gentle stars. The priest leads chants that rise and fall like waves, soothing and measured. And in the telling of the story, the dead themselves seem to join, not with menace, but as soft presences, whispering lessons in patience, humility, and the value of every fleeting moment. The boy walks with them, imagining shadows bending into shapes of laughter and song, feeling the calm power of ritual and the sense that even death can offer comfort, guidance, and rhythm. In one corner of the graveyard, an old woman hums a tune that she learned from her mother, who learned it from hers. It is a song of celebration and remembrance, a melody that carries across centuries. As the villagers dance in slow circles, the rhythm of steps on stone and soil becomes a lullaby, steady and predictable. The young boy follows the dance, his heart quiet, his mind open to the mystery and grace of what surrounds him. For the medieval world, such dances were not only tradition, but reassurance that life and death are intertwined, that memory preserves love, and that even in darkness, there is rhythm, pattern, and gentle beauty. Suddenly, the boy imagines seeing shapes rising from the graves, figures of the past swaying to the music. Yet these are not frightening specters, but echoes of life, dancing in patterns passed down through the ages. The priest smiles knowingly, understanding the blending of imagination, memory, and presence. And here, in the gentle telling of the story, we too can imagine these shapes moving softly, their steps measured, their presence calm. The tale invites the mind to follow slowly, to drift with each motion, to feel the pulse of life flowing into memory, and the comfort of continuity even in the face of mortality. As the festival progresses, villagers offer stories aloud, of those who lived well, of lessons learned, of kindness and courage remembered. Each story is a candle flickering briefly, its warmth touching those who listen. The boy hears of brave deeds, quiet acts of compassion, and moments of love that persisted even after death. The rhythm of the tales becomes hypnotic, a steady flow carrying him towards stillness. The dead, though silent, seem present, and the living feel both their absence and their quiet guidance. For the medieval listener, this was the purpose of the Dance of the Dead: to remember, to honor, and to find calm within the inevitability of mortality. The night deepens, and the wind rises softly, brushing against the lanterns and stones. The villagers continue their slow dance, and the boy's eyelids grow heavy. Each step, each whispered story, each gentle note of song wraps around him like a soft blanket. The dead remain unseen, but their presence is felt, not as terror, but as reassurance. The tale reminds that life is fleeting, but memory endures, that the rhythms of nature, the pulse of generations, and the cycles of life and death are patterns we can follow with ease, letting them guide our minds toward peace and quiet. Toward midnight, the dance reaches its quiet conclusion. Villagers lay flowers and herbs upon the graves, whispering final blessings. The young boy, now fully immersed in the ritual, understands the purpose, that remembrance is a gift, and that honoring the past provides calm and grounding for the present. The medieval storyteller would have emphasized that such rituals bring balance to the mind and spirit, much like the measured cadence of this tale carries us forward tonight. We too, listening in the comfort of our own space, feel that slow unfolding, that soft rhythm guiding our thoughts toward rest. As the villagers depart, leaving only the faint glow of candles and the whispers of the wind, the forest and cemetery return to silence. The boy rests beneath a tree, his eyes closing as he contemplates the cycle of life, the beauty of continuity, and the gentle hand of memory. And here, in the telling of this story, we recognize the soothing power of rhythm and reflection, the quiet magic of ritual, and the calm knowledge that even darkness holds lessons that prepare us for sleep. The Dance of the Dead, while once a lesson in medieval ritual and morality, becomes a gentle guide in the quiet of night. Its purpose is not fright, but meditation. It teaches that life and death are not enemies, but partners in a slow, continuous rhythm. Each candle, each whispered story, each step of the dance is a note in a lullaby that stretches across centuries, reaching now into the quiet room where we listen. The rhythm of storytelling, combined with reflection and imagination, becomes a bridge to rest, gently leading the mind into slumber. Finally, the night falls fully over the village and over us, as listeners, wrapped in the soft cadence of medieval tales. The Dance of the Dead fades into silence, leaving only the calm of understanding and the gentle pulse of rhythm. Like the boy under the tree, we close our eyes and drift, carried by centuries of story, ritual, and reflection. The medieval shadows retreat, replaced by the warmth of remembered voices and the soft embrace of sleep. And with that, our journey through the 5 dark medieval tales comes to a close, leaving the mind serene, the heart calm, and the soul ready to wander into dreams. And now, as our journey through the shadowed forests, whispering halls, and candlelit villages of the medieval world comes to a gentle close. It is time to let the stories settle quietly in your mind. The tales we've shared, the singing bones, the robber bridegroom, the knight and the talking skull, the werewolf secret, and the dance of the dead, have drifted around you like soft echoes of another time, a world both distant and strangely familiar. They are stories of caution, curiosity, courage, and mystery. Yet tonight, their purpose is not to awaken, but to lull, to guide your thoughts slowly toward calm and rest. Imagine the forests growing still under a silvered moon, the village streets silent, the shadows folding softly into one another. The knights, the maidens, the creatures of legend, they have all returned to the folds of history, leaving behind only the gentle rhythm of their tales. With each breath, you sink a little deeper into comfort. The candlelight flickers low, and the air grows warmer and slower, carrying you further away from the noise and worries of your day. Each story has left a whisper behind, a soft footprint across your mind, leading you ever gently towards sleep. There is no need to hold tightly to the details now. Let them float like leaves on a calm stream, drifting silently past, while your body and mind release the day. Feel the rhythm of history slow you, like the beating of a distant drum or the hush of the wind through the trees. In this quiet, the past and the present meet, and the mind finds its own natural cadence. A lullaby crafted across centuries, waiting only for you to follow. So, let your eyes grow heavy, your breathing soft and even, and your mind wander freely. The medieval world, with all its dark tales and hidden lessons, will remain just beyond the veil of sleep, a gentle presence guiding you through the quiet night. You have walked through shadows and whispers, through lessons and mysteries, and now it is time to surrender fully to rest. Sleep deeply, slowly, and safely, carried by the soft pulse of history itself. And as you drift into dreams, remember, the stories remain with you, not to disturb, but to soothe, to linger like the warm glow of a fire fading into the night. Good night, and may your journey through history continue in dreams, serene, calm, and endlessly peaceful.